analysis section without additional evidence or research to help you with your analysis. So let's move on and let me talk about this section here. So for your analysis, this is where you're going to bring in data sets, other research or evidence that you've collected. It could be your own professional experience that you're drawing on, or conversations with others that you're using to evaluate these alternatives, the alternatives that you just listed in the previous section. So you could break it out into separate data subsection if you wanted, or you can just integrate it as part of this, however you do it. Some people are going to do it quantitatively with an AHP model. Some people are going to, I think, are going to write it out more in paragraph form, saying, you know, these are the conversations I had that leads me to believe alternative A is better than alternative B. There's another piece that belongs here in the analysis section. That piece, and I really, this is what I want to emphasize tonight, values. What are the principles or the values that are important to the decision maker, to you, to the actors that are involved? What are the most important things to consider in terms of values in identifying what's best? And we'll refresh ourselves again on some of the different values in public administration, but they can be things like efficiency. That's the most common one that I hear. I love and hate efficiency. Businesses love it. Gosh, they love it. It makes me sick. Because public administrators, we care about more than just efficiency. We have to. That's what being a public administrator is all about. We have to balance legal values and political values. Those may or may not exist to in a clear sense in your project. But if it helps you to put a separate subsections under analysis and say, this is my data or my research, these are my values, go ahead and put those separate sections. That's totally fine if that helps kind of keep you organized. And I'm going to show you an example of this later. No, under the analysis. And it should say that in the syllabus. Now the question you might ask, well, that seems like great, all fine and good for a recommendation. What if I'm doing a proposal? It's the same thing. What evidence are you using to fill out your proposal? How do I know your proposal is the right one? How do you know it's the right one? What evidence did you base that on? What expertise is part of that? The reason I'm asking you to do that is not just so you can check the box, but so that when you give this product to somebody, they have confidence in you, that you've spent some time systematically pulling together some evidence, some data, some interviews, whatever it is, to say these are the right sections of this proposal. These are the right ingredients to have. That's how that gets worked in. Same thing with values. You just come around and say the most important value for my organization is conservation. This was Corey's presentation, water conservation. So if conservation is the #1 priority, that says certain things about what needs to be in this proposal. And that's really, this is going to be your biggest section, by the way, this analysis or proposal development section. For most everybody, this is going to be your longest, meatiest, most impressive section where you're defending your choices of what goes into either a recommendation or a proposal. Okay, let me stop. Before we talk about recommendation, conclusion, and executive summary, let me stop and ask, are there questions? Jason.
So a couple classes ago, we kind of hinted that content of the proposal might not be in the paper, but in the appendix. As that, in the overview of the proposal,
yeah,
there's no content of like what our actual proposal is.
That's right. In the overview of the proposal, you're giving more or less a bird's eye view, 10,000-foot view of what this solution is. Here, you're getting into the specific choices. This may not be the actual for yours strategic plan in this. In fact, your strategic plan probably is best in an appendix. But what's in your strategic plan? A goal. Well, why? How did you form that goal? What evidence did you use to develop that goal? The mission statements. What evidence? What values did you use to formulate a mission statement? Those are the kinds of things you walk me through. And then you can have an appendix of your strategic plan or your budget document or whatever it is that you're including. But this is really where you're defending your choices, justifying your choices, showing me and your decision maker that you've got expertise in this. Not just in coming up with a pretty document, but you're going to lift the hood and you're going to say, this is why this ingredient is here, and this is why this ingredient is here, because it maximizes these values or it's built on these data, this evidence. Does that help? Okay. Does everybody see now sort of where it's possible to collect quantitative data? The AHP model really helps you just do a lot of this systematically. It doesn't help you develop a strategic plan though. So you've got to be able to write and sort of use logic to work your way through this. Okay, we're okay? Let's go to the next section, recommendation. If you're writing a recommendation where you've done this alternatives analysis, what you're going to be doing is in this section is essentially saying, this is the alternative or alternatives that best maximize whatever values. You're starting to close the loop, in other words. This is where your decision maker, where you'd want to point your busy decision maker. Okay, what does this person want from me? Well, read the recommendation. Okay, so you should have in the recommendation sort of the result of your analysis. If you're writing a proposal, this is where you have a summary of your proposal. It will look very similar to this, by the way. It will look very similar to this alternatives proposal section in that it's going to be a 10,000-foot view, but you're probably going to have a few more details in here for your decision maker, because this is where you're going to drive your decision maker to say, what is it that Jan's really asking me to do? Well, you read the recommendation or the proposal summary to find out what's really going on there. Okay, now let me talk about, well then, why would we need a conclusion? Because what the conclusion does is it forces you in a paragraph or so. This doesn't have to be long, and you don't have to give it to your decision maker, but I think it's a pretty effective thing. This is where you take your recommendation, your proposal summary, and you go back and you link it to the objective. How does your recommendation, how does your proposal in summary achieve what it is you started out to achieve? So if this is kind of closing the loop, this is where you actually finish it off and tie it together. Does everybody have conceptually how that fits, how that works? I'm seeing some confidence. I'm still seeing some sort of inquisitive eyes, but I can't tell if they're tired or inquisitive or where we're at. Daniel.
So your analysis is more like your methodology that you used, and then your recommendation or proposal is basically, this is what I came to the conclusion I did after I got all that stuff, right?
Absolutely, and I should be able to see, if you've recommended alternative C, I should be able to follow through your analysis how in the world you ended up at alternative C. It shouldn't be a surprise to me, in other words, that you're saying alternative C is where we've landed, because it's the most efficient, it avoids the most legal problems, it saves the most water, whatever it is. Okay? Okay, good. Good deep breath. Executive summary. Executive summary is short, especially for a paper of this kind. It's going to be less than a page, a couple of paragraphs, 3 maybe, where you've got to have some key ingredients. You've got to have your objective in the executive summary. Your single sentence objective, so yes, it's redundant, but you're putting that in your executive summary because this may be all that your decision maker reads. It might have a very, very few sentences about the problem and the background, just enough to whet the decision maker's appetite, give them a little bit versed, schooled in what it is you're trying to tackle. And it had better have something about your recommendation or a quick summary of the proposal that you're putting on that person's desk. In other words, don't make this a suspense novel, a thriller where I have to read to the end to find out what it is you're about. That should all be in the executive summary. So let me repeat. Executive summary should have the objective, a little bit of the problem in the background, and then your recommendation. or your proposal summary. You don't need to have your alternatives in the executive summary. That's part of the travel log that you don't need to include for your busy decision maker. If they want that detail, they can read that section. Okay, are there any questions? Let's take a 5-minute potty break while you ponder questions, and then I'll ask the question again. What questions you have? We'll see you back a quarter after.
I sent that to you.
If anybody has any relatives named Stacy, I'm sorry, we didn't mean to offend. We like the name. We didn't mean to offend anybody by naming a chicken after Stacy.
Did the chickens come with you? That's hard. That's like a real pet.
It was a Christmas card.
It was,
Christmas dinner.
yeah, that's right. It was a real pet for B. For the rest, I mean, chickens really are dumb.
Yeah.
They're super dumb, but they're kind of fun.
Yeah.
Bigger questions. Do you leave them or just eat them?
Chickens aren't very tasty.
Your chicken.
The project chickens. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Yeah, you can do either way. But the hard setup right now seems to be pretty. And research evidence, this could really be one thing.
Hey, son.
Just one thing. So this could feel more fluid.
Well, because you have an early morning tomorrow, you got up really early today, you've had a full day, and you son. Sure. You will be fine to not watch it tonight. Okay, you can watch it a different night with her. I'll let you get to bed, and your sister won't go to sleep until you go to sleep. Son, no, it's not. You'll be home again. Son, you're fine. Son, you watched the video last night. You'll find a time. I'm confident you will. For a week, that's it, son.
You have backup references.
Don't have a plan. You'll be fine. You'll be back in July. You'll be back in August. I don't want to he would agree. Son. It's late, and I'll be coming home soon. You've got a big day in the morning. Okay, he's coming in 10 hours. Okay, I love you. He's coming at 8 o'clock. It means you gotta get up by 7. Okay? Good night, son. Or you and her can both sleep in my room, and I'll wake you up.
Who was
when I get
computer?
home.
That was.
Well, it's better than her being off the board. What? I just need her to go to sleep, and then she wants to sleep in my bed.
Yeah, I don't know.
Love you, son.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, there are probably a few people that would do great with it. I haven't talked to Melinda yet about the music either.
She's not here.
Linda?
I haven't seen her.
She haven't seen her at all this term. She's not in the capstone.
I thought she was here 4 years ago.
She was. I don't know why she was here. She's not in the capstone.
Leah's not either, but she knows.
She audited the class, but Melinda didn't do that. She,
In order to pursue what you're ultimately recommending, and why did you ultimately recommend that?
Of course, you know.
but I still need to talk to her about it.
So recommendation feels like the right thing.
I don't know about the program. Whenever it's worthwhile to send out an email and just ask if anybody'd be willing to put it together.
I'll try to get invitations and that doesn't kind of.
Maybe, yeah, it's probably better to just be direct about it. What are you thinking then?
I didn't talk to her.
Try Tucker. Yeah.
You
He might be willing,
should have enough summarized.
especially if we showed him the last one. Just got that
Yeah,
somewhere.
in the email.
If you can't find it, let me know, because I think I have it somewhere too, so. Just send that as an example.
Quick question.
Yeah. Clarify, make sure I'm on.
Yeah, okay.
I know.
Okay, so remind me, you do that proposal development and recommendation for 201 as well. Yes, so what you're doing is you're going through and you might have bullet number 1, this is why this one is included, bullet number 2, this is why this one is included, and then choice to put it in. Why is that such an important piece of it? Does it help us keep the citizen engagement or not citizen engagement? Participation, whatever it's there. Yeah.
It's more like construction.
Yes, yes, in your case it would be unless you have, but you can also have some data that suggests, citizens got this out of technology from one, but they were missing this component. So that statistic in there, 58% of them wanted this component, and then you're making an argument for why that would be. So I don't think you have to be right. Fast. Sure. Touch, right? You get them on the touch. At 6. Yeah.
Hard to know how to format this bullet point section. Have a hard time. Those two.
Things to do that.
I know.
Sometimes what I will do is like
So one of them could be like,
take the numbering completely off and then try to retry it. Separating all that way.
some options might not be that.
So yeah, so take them all the way out to.
So maybe take them off here.
That's not very accurate.
I'm not saying you have the answers, right?
Why that might be the best. If you can put that into your own section, or you can put them on.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Integrated, that's exactly right.
Shortcut.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. Okay, welcome back. Welcome back, welcome back. I promised I would ask this. I've already had some people come up to me with questions, and I'm assuming that more of you have questions that we would all benefit from. What questions do you have about this? Please.
So, anyway, we kind of talked on the break about, we were asked to incorporate kind of what we've learned from specific classes that we've taken in this program and tying it into all of this. So maybe a good explanation of how to do that would be helpful, because I think Carrie brought up a good point of not really knowing how to.
Oh,
I
you're
felt like,
so good. You're reminding us of the other section that comes
yeah.
as part of this, where we shouldn't forget that. Thank you.
And I felt like it was going to be easier with the proposal, because then I can show, oh, here's the budget I created for this, or, those other things. But as we thought through it together, I decided, well, as I'm weighing those alternatives, I am using finance and budgeting. I am using these other things. So then I felt more confident about it. But yeah, it was definitely something I wanted to pause and think about.
Clarifying how you would like to see that stated, and like, I don't know, that kind of detail. Yeah.
So you've caught me a little unprepared for that question. So give me 30 seconds, and I will have an answer for you. I'm doing what we all should be doing, which is go to the syllabus. I've seen what I've got on it.
It's supposed to be part of the figure change.
There's two clowns eating a cannibal, and one looks at the other and says, I think we got this joke wrong. It's late, sorry.
Okay, and actually, this speaks to Bryce's question as well. So the appendix does not count towards your 15 pages. So this is going to be a 1-page or less summary. So also, let me separate these a little bit. So Bryce has more than 10 pages of appendix that he wants to include. That's great. Jason has probably a strategic plan that's at least multiple pages that he wants to include as appendix. That's great. That doesn't count towards the 15. It's there to help me understand what it is we're dealing with, but the capstone itself should stand on its own independent. Same thing with this list of classes that you used. You don't have to integrate it into the capstone itself. This is kind of a piece that stands separate in the appendix, where in a little more reflective style you say, you know, and you could go through, in fact, in the syllabus, I don't know if anybody noticed this, I'll just take a minute here because I thought it was so nice of me. Right? With each class, in the brackets in the upper right hand of each column, of each row, I list a handful of classes that I think we touch upon each evening.
I did notice that. Thank you.
It's the one good thing I did.
I'm not sure what those are.
Now, what you write to call into question is really how relevant each of these classes were for that evening. Before we convened for class, I had in my mind that yes, these are going to be things that will just come rushing back to our minds that evening as we talk about communication, or as we talk about analysis, or as we talk about whatever it is. But they're good little guideposts for when you're writing that statement to go back and say, okay, here are all the classes I've had. What was I really using in order to develop, to identify alternatives or the actors, or marshal the evidence together? And just to have I'm not really looking for any magic form here. This is going to be more free-flowing, I'm guessing, more like a journal kind of an entry. So that was a great question. Other questions?
So just on the appendix, say for example, I've had to do a lot of interviews. So just scan those, I mean, it's handwritten, so just scan those, drop those in.
If you'd like. Yeah, absolutely, if you'd like. The reason I love that is because then you have a self-contained document. We don't have to then go later on, try to resurrect where the primary data was for that. You've got it there as part of your package. That's good. Other questions? Okay.
So how much of that type of information, I guess the tools that you use to do your research is appropriate to put throughout the paper as opposed to in the appendix?
Maybe another way of asking that question, or at least the way I'm thinking about it too, is we talked about, you know, a couple paragraphs for executive summary, a paragraph for the objective, a couple paragraphs for the background, a couple paragraphs for proposal. We're at 3 pages now. So does that mean 12 pages are for the proposal or analysis development? That won't really happen, at least for my paper, without including a whole bunch of the actual research stuff.
This was never a couple, 2, 3 paragraphs.
Oh, is that a couple pages or something?
This could be in many cases much, much more. I don't want this to be more than the actual analysis itself. This could be a significant piece. Okay. And on any of these where I've said a couple, 2, 3 paragraphs, you've always got room to expand that where it's necessary. I don't want you just filling the space. But tools, typically, your question, typically go under analysis. Now, I don't need a history of the AHP model, who invented it, why it's useful, what software packages you need to run it. Let's not do that. But you could give a very brief explanation of why AHP is valuable, what are some of its strengths and weaknesses, and why you used it for this project, and then go into it. Okay.
So you say in the analysis that if there's something that you know, if they want additional detail about that analysis or about that data, just reference that. If you want more information, go to the appendix.
Sure.
Here.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yep. In fact, we do that all the time. I did that yesterday with the research paper. Stuff that didn't fit in the research paper that was still useful. It's up online on an appendix. Yeah, so that's the right way to go. Okay, I don't want to, I want to, but I don't want to go to the next slide until I'm confident everybody knows how to fill these sections. That everybody's pretty clear on the different components, what and how they're different from each other.
Just really quickly, just maybe for me, just the proposal summary again, just
good,
real quick.
Thanks for the question. Yeah, thanks for the question. These two things, the proposal overview and the proposal summary, they're going to look pretty similar. This may have a little more detail. What I want you to think here is this is the section you want your decision maker to read. If they only read two things, the executive summary and your recommendation or proposal summary, what do they absolutely need to know? What are the essentials? So it might be a little more detailed than this, but certainly it won't have all the detail that's in the proposal development section. So for folks writing proposals, yes, this is going to be, there's some redundancy here. You're giving them an overview, you're breaking it down, and then you're sort of piling it back together and saying, this is what we're talking about. Great question. Did that prompt others? Please, Sean.
That didn't prompt another one, but you had mentioned before talking about deliverables. Where do you think that fits best?
So deliverables could come here in this conclusion, really. And this is where you're not only going to loop back and say how this is going to accomplish the objective, but maybe what are some future steps, or what does this set us up to accomplish in the future? This is where you can make some notes to yourself. I've talked to several of you where you said has sort of opened the door to 2 or 3 things that now need to be done because of this project. This is a good place to talk about that.
Where was that? Which one?
The conclusion. Yeah, to reflect upon the future. Not only connected to the objective, but to think about, okay, now where does this take us moving forward? One really good question.
I'm still a little concerned that I won't meet the 15 pages.
Okay, raise your hand if you're concerned like Clark that you see you're not alone.
Does that make you feel better?
Okay.
But I mean, you've told us you don't want fluff. I agree with that. I don't want to write something that doesn't make any sense. But at the same time, I want it to be a good paper. I want it to be concise. I want it to, and I just am not convinced that that's going to generate 15 pages.
Okay. Now that we've had the conversation tonight, again, I think we're in the best position tonight to have this conversation. Now that we've had that conversation and you understand what's in each of these sections, now it's on you to sort of say, hey, if I've done everything I need to do to describe the problem in the background, I'm gonna just keep moving forward. I'm not gonna try to invent another page of poetry or fiction or whatever, or needless detail. You go ahead and move forward. And if you end up with a 13-page paper and I have read through it and I have the confidence that you gave me what I needed, then you'll be okay. However, if I get to the end of a 13-page paper and I said, boy, I really wish I had more detail on this problem. I mean, there were 2 pages that Clark could have used to help me understand why this is such an issue. That's when you're going to get in trouble. Does that make sense?
I can see with the initial recommendations model that if you have 3 alternatives, that you're going to go into extensive detail about each alternative and talk about those. You would easily fill 15 pages.
Yeah.
But if you have your proposal, what the proposal is, then I can see that you may not have 3 to 5 alternatives you're writing about. You just have your proposal. So
good. I'm glad you raised that.
It'd be challenging to write 15 pages when you already know the direction you go.
Joey brought his computer up, right? You sort of asked how you're arranging your proposal development. So what you're gonna, David, I'm sorry, Joey, you're like confused. David, thanks for helping me out. I've got the right vector here, just the wrong person. Proposal development, you're going to be taking section by section and saying, well, why is this ingredient as part of the proposal development? So it's going to be very similar to what you're doing alternative by alternative. You're going to be doing section by section in your proposal. Why does that belong there? Why is that justified? Using evidence, does it achieve any particular values that are important? If it doesn't, then, you've got to revisit that. But this is going to be the same. You're exploding this a little bit, looking at each alternative at a time, looking at each piece of the proposal at a time. So I don't see that taking less space necessarily. For most of you that raised your hand that have concerns about filling 15 pages, I'm going to just prognosticate just a little bit here that you're actually going to freak out a little at the end and to get to the 15 pages.
Yep, that's the case.
And that's okay. Not all of you, but some of you, that's going to happen to you. You're going to say, well, all of a sudden I'm 15 pages. I'm at 16 pages. Now what do I get rid of? So just for some of you, plan on that. For others, you will. You'll get to maybe 14 pages, say, I got nothing else. This is good. I feel confident, and hand it in. You won't be penalized for that.
But if you go over 15 pages. I mean, I guess I don't have that problem, but I know some people probably do.
Right, some of the right? This was like the marriage and family class, and a marriage that I know. and we all knew that we were talking about our own marriages. It was so fun. See what you can get to an appendix. See what you can. 15 pages is it's 16 pages. I'm not smiling quite as big. I get to 17 pages and I'm grumpy. Does that help you sort of understand where I'm at here? Because there's 40 something of you. So 15 pages, I like 15 pages. 16 pages don't like as much. 17 pages I start to hate.
8's amazing, right?
No, it actually works the other way. 14 pages I'm kind of okay with. 13 I'm starting to hate. Like, I'm starting to be suspicious. What am I missing? 12, 11. I'm getting nervous. Okay, you get the idea. All right, let's go on to this next thing. We're gonna have to skip a couple of things. Let's skip this. I think we're okay skipping this. For those of you that are sitting there saying values, what values are important? What's important beyond efficiency? I'm going to show you this once again, and I think we're in a better position to consume this now, to digest this. This is a really bad copy of a copy of a copy of a set of values. I don't know why it's such a bad screenshot. It just is. Of a set of values that a theorist, Rosenblum, I know I'm redundant here, a theorist Rosenblum said these are central values as sort of beginning places to start thinking about what are the key values of public management, of public service. You have access to these slides. This will be the second time that this table will appear in your slides. I can't remember, class 3, I think was the other class where they showed up. But things like efficiency, we've already talked about, economy effectiveness, absolutely. But there's other things that we don't think about, things like responsiveness, things like representation, accountability, things like constitutional integrity, things like equity. James and I, we were just talking about at school and the value of equity. A private charter school that doesn't have a busing system, it's not as equitable because only the folks, families that can drive their kids to school have access to that. That's not captured in efficiency or economy. I think that's captured in equity. So be thoughtful about what values you're putting into your section. This is really just a shopping list. It's available in the slides. There may be others. Corey's got water conservation, okay, environmental concern. Many of you have that actually. This is an important value. It's not captured here, but go ahead and put that in. Just because it's not on the list doesn't mean it shouldn't be part of your analysis or part of your project development. Okay. My favorite thing to talk about in the whole wide world is the role of law in public management. I just love it. Part of it, I know I'm biased, I've got a law background, but I really think there's something, and we require, one of the things, when I say we've got a great MPA program, I'm not kidding. Because we have the class, who took it from Carl Hernandez? Everybody had the class, required, am I right?
Yeah.
Do you know how many MPA programs have a required law class? Not very many at all. They used to be a requirement. Does Hernandez talk about this? Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't, I don't know. Used to be a requirement to be accredited with our accrediting body, but it's not anymore. But we've kept our required law class. How important that is, in part because it goes to the fundamental definition of at least what I think is a great definition of public management. Why do I bring this up? Because it gets back to where we started tonight. What are principles that we shouldn't forget? What are principles or values that should show up in our analysis? That should show up in every day that we manage as you're writing your personal management statements. Legal values is certainly a great one place to start. What I wanted to do, just by way in our last few minutes together, is illustrate, kind of with that as a point of departure, illustrate a perspective on analysis. So if everybody could go to this top Google, I don't think you have to do the HTTPS, just go Google / I think that's an I, maybe it's an L. It's an L. Is it an L?
We'll find out.
Let somebody try it. This is empirical. It's a short little editorial from PA Times, which is a magazine or a news.
It's an I.
It's an I? Awesome, it's an I. Thank you. Okay. It's called The Primacy of Rules in Government. What I want you to do is I want you to spend just a few minutes skimming the first 4 paragraphs. Okay? You get to an example, stop before you get to the example.
So you said stop before you get to the example.
Yeah, just read down to it before he offers an example about a thrift savings plan. So it's an I. Thank you, Clark. 3I 62 PQ. Okay, raise your hand if you found the article. Just about everybody's saying, okay. You're just skimming a couple paragraphs there before you, how many paragraphs is it before he gives the example? 1, 2? 2?
Yeah.
Look up with eagerness befitting this late hour. When you're done, read through that. Kyle, nice one. I like that.
Is there a scan or something?
No, you're like ready to learn. There's focus there. Unbelievable at this time of night, but well done. Okay. What did you take away from these first couple of paragraphs? This guy's writing about the importance of rules in government. Was there anything that jumped out at you, Bruce?
For me, it was that as a policy analyst, what he does in practice has nothing to do with what he studied in code.
Okay. Except for you guys, because you had the required course. You had the required course in law, Karen.
I'm more concerned about the legal ramifications of the policy than how it might affect people going forward.
Okay, good. What else?
Actually, when I read it, I think about every time I hire somebody from the outside world, I mean, the first time they try to buy something under government rules, it's just funny to watch. Because there's so many rules and so many policies, and you gotta do this vendor if it's over that much money, and you gotta use this if it's under that much money, and it's fun to watch them get frustrated.
Yeah, yeah. There are certain values, and the reason I bring this up is because this drives exactly to the analysis section, but it also drives to what I hope you remember after you graduate in two more classes, right? I hope you remember that it's your life as a public servant is more than just efficiency. People may complain about red tape and bureaucracy, but your life is more than just efficiency. Your life is about upholding the law. It's about representing the Constitution. If you look at his sort of the biggest paragraph there, the very last couple of sentences, he says, in the great majority of cases, our policy work consisted of reviewing the rules that apply to a given situation. It was much more of an exercise in logic than cost benefit or ethical analysis. So some of you have capstones that do lend themselves to a nice quantitative cost-benefit analysis. In other cases, in the majority of cases, you're going to be making logical arguments. How does this alternative maximize the values that you think are important? How does this piece of your proposal maximize the values that you think are important and that are in play? You're going to have to go and do exactly what this practitioner just reflected on a couple weeks ago, and write this out and defend the argument. Go back and look and say, this is how I'm going to explain this. In other words, I hope I'm making clear how this fits in not only with your capstone, but the kind of work you're going to be doing moving forward, the kind of work you should be doing as a graduate of an MPA program that still requires, wisely, a class on the law. I think this fits in nicely with the analysis. That doesn't mean I expect everybody to have legal values in their analysis. You don't have to. But where it's appropriate, don't be afraid to get in and say, hey, this isn't so good for individual rights. This is kind of a bad option. And don't think that every decision you ever make has to be done with Excel. Some of this you're going to be really doing the hard work of making the logical argument. This is the right way to move forward based on law, and this is why. Okay, are we okay with this? Okay, I've got 3 minutes. What I've done here is I've given you a link. This one's much easier. I've given you a link to a past memo. This is a memo that a student group handed in like 3 years ago when I was at Georgia. I didn't give you this memo early in the semester because they had different requirements. They're writing about medical marijuana, by the way, so hopefully nobody's sensibilities will be offended. But if you pull this up, what I want you to do is I want you to skip to page 4. I don't hold this out as something you need to copy, but I hold this out as an example that you can look at. So if you go to page 4, I've already told you it's about medical marijuana and whether somebody, I'll tell you a little more, whether somebody in New Jersey should be fired for using legally medical marijuana, but because of that not passing a drug test. Whether there's grounds to fire the person. Okay, so it's a sticky situation. It's not really easy to understand. The person was working in, I think, transportation. Do we want people on medical marijuana involved in operating public transport? Okay, so it's a little stickier. So what they'd start on page 4 is their analysis section. And they go through several different alternatives, different options. And what you can see that they do is they talk about how each of those different options uphold various values from that Rosenblum framework that I showed you earlier. You see they don't do it with tables and numbers. They do it with an argument. They do it with an appeal to logic of this is the right way forward. This based on our expertise. This is the most responsive, or this is the most efficient. And you can kind of go through and see how that looks. I only give this to you just so you have a point of reference to maybe give you a little confidence as you guys finalize your analysis sections or your proposal development sections this week and next. You should kind of wrap it all out. As you look through this, do you guys have any questions? Is there anything that jumps out here that you think that's totally foreign? I hope what this feels is a little familiar as you look at this, but if it doesn't, that's okay. Just use it as a point of reference if it's helpful. I will be on email as much as I possibly can. I'll be in DC. I've got tons of meetings, but I will be on email as much as I possibly can. My ability to do phone calls with you will probably be limited, but my email, I'll be as responsive as I can. Please reach out if you have questions. I'll have these slides up shortly online. Hopefully those will help kind of guide you as you finish this up. But I really want to congratulate you tonight on doing a great job with your presentations. I know that 3 weeks ago, even 2 weeks ago, you didn't think you could do it. And I want you to take just a second as you pack up to pat yourself on the back. You did it. Yeah, you did. Well, in fact, let's give you a hand. And I similarly am convinced that you're going to have the same experience with your written capstone. That you're going to say, wow, there's no way we can do this, even with 2 weeks left. But you're going to get there and you're going to say, we did it. We accomplished this. And I'm confident that you can. And you're going to write really interesting problems. A lot of our speakers tonight want to know what your product's going to look like. They want the follow-up. I mean, you pique that much interest and curiosity in them. You engage those kind of problems, and that's really important. You guys have a safe week. Stay in touch with me on email if you have questions, and talk to me before you guys go out and buy any chickens. Alan, thank you. Those are extras. Okay. Thanks.
Are we supposed to write our names in the back of these?
Yeah.
I know you're here.
Okay, so you don't care to keep the proposal letter that I sent you way back when it was part of the chapter? That was putting me at like 19 pages. Because I included my big checklist.
You can do that in the appendix, the checklist in the appendix, a lot of this.
I just don't want you to see the 20 and be like, oh, I'm in a bad mood now.
No, put it in the appendix.
It was an appendix.
Sure.
I just don't know if you care or not for the proposal letter. No big deal. Okay, I'm not gonna worry about it. Less is more. So to sign my name over and over, you didn't put the reciprocity ring.
So we had
Help me with
class 4 on the
four.
I'll get.
Yeah, class 4 on the blue ones, because I forgot these white ones.
They'll put it on here.
Oh, was that last week?
Yeah, that was last week.
That's class